2025 marked major changes in leadership positions at the University of Hawaii. And for the first time here on Spotlight Now, we speak to UH President Wendy Hensel about her first 7 months on the job. We'll also hear from newly appointed Athletic Director Matt Elliott. Spotlight Now starts now.
You're watching Spotlight Now with Ryan Kalei-Suchi and Yunji Denise on Hawaii News Now. Have questions or comments for our guests? Join the conversation in our Facebook live stream. Spotlight Now, where Hawaii comes to talk.
Well, aloha and thanks for tuning in here to Spotlight Now on Hawaii News Now. I'm Ryan Kalei-Suchi. Yunji Denise has the day off, so it is just me asking questions of our guests. But we want to encourage you to become our co-host here and engage in the conversation. You can enter your comments and questions for our guests by logging onto Facebook and entering your comments and questions into the Facebook section of our Hawaii News Now page. I will be tracking it throughout the show and bringing in questions for our guests as you present them. We want to welcome in our first guest, UH President Wendy Hensel, who took over the job earlier this year. Thank you so much for joining us and being here.
Oh, mahalo. Appreciate the invitation.
You know, before we get to some of the topics that are impacting the University of Hawaii, I just want to start broadly and ask you how things have been. 7 months here on the job. How have things been going as you transitioned into this role?
Well, I love it here. Absolutely love it. The university community has been so supportive, and it has been a true joy to meet members of the community and really get started on looking at what the future looks like.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that future and some of the things that have been making headlines, specifically what's happening at the federal level. We have been hearing of a lot of cuts that are coming to programs. Universities have had to adjust based on federal grants and researchers. Broadly speaking, how has this impacted the University of Hawaii as a whole?
It's certainly a challenging time. That part has been a little less fun. Actually, a story came out today that said that Hawaii students were the second most impacted by federal funding cuts in the country. So that was an interesting data point for us. We've lost around $80 million in federal funds so far. It's a good moment in that at least we're starting to see some of them come back as some of the very significant issues that we do research on have been recognized as important that have been cut. So, you know, we're working through the implications of those cuts and taking it day by day to evaluate how to respond.
You know, one of the things that UH has become known for is the work that it does is in its research, and a lot of the research is funded by federal grants. How do you make those adjustments when you hear of these cuts that are coming specifically for the research community, and what that could mean broadly for Hawaii? Because, you know, we report on different research and statistics that come from the University of Hawaii, and many people rely on those types of research data. How does that impact things moving forward for these departments that get directly impacted by these cuts?
You know, I've said several times, part of the reason we're impacted so significantly is because we're so good at the research areas that have been most targeted, things like climate justice and DEI and Native Hawaiian issues. And so that's challenging, right? There is no way that any individual university can make up for the funding losses from the federal government. It is the federal government that funds that kind of research. But we are continuing to look at where we can bridge those losses, continue our research dominance, and we fully expect to continue to apply for grants and pivot as we go forward to make sure we stay competitive.
Let's talk about maybe some of those other funding streams that you're looking at. I mean, what does that look like if you know that you're not getting those federal dollars? Does that position, you know, the administration and those involved to look at other sources of funding, whether it be locally or at the state level? I mean, what are those conversations like right now?
I mean, it's always true that it's important to diversify funding streams. So we have a history of going for state funding, for private philanthropy, for people who care about these issues, even other researchers in other countries who fund that kind of joint research together. But truthfully, there is no way to make up for the loss of the federal funds. So part of it is we're waiting to see where it shakes out as different areas that we were surprised to see impacted, like biomedical research, for example, an area that typically wouldn't be affected by a change in political winds. is beginning to turn and shift back in our favor as frankly some of our red state counterparts are experiencing those losses. So we're working with our partners in higher education, other universities, and our consortium to try and really advocate for the restoration of that funding.
Well, aside from just the cuts themselves, we're also seeing other stipulations and requirements that are now coming, saying if you do get federal funding, you also have to do this. One of those things may include proving that students are getting jobs or proving work that is deemed necessary within these departments to justify funding. What are some of those changes that have come through the pipeline about things that you've had to adjust in order to meet these federal standards that are now coming in place?
Well, I think it's less having to adjust than being aware of some of the shifting definitions of things like DEIA, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Certainly there have been additional directives that have changed the definitions of those things to suggest that any indication or taking into consideration identity becomes problematic as opposed to something that we did to create equity. And so we're simply evaluating our different programs to see where we fit within that. But we are confident. We have always been in compliance with federal law. We continue to be in compliance with federal law. But certainly it is a tricky landscape as different voices speak in identifying what those things mean for universities.
One of the other things that we know could be impacted is just what's happening with international students. The Trump administration, of course, has really begun cracking down on, their actions with deportation, and wondering if any of what's happening and making headlines throughout the world about what's happening with immigration and deportation, has that impacted the international student numbers coming in or interest in the University of Hawaii?
Well, I think it's hard to tell what the impact of that is at the moment. Certainly, the slowdown in securing visas will be an issue for us. We're seeing that is becoming a problem. We have maybe 20 to 30% of our students internationally who are still trying to secure their visa. So we are in constant contact with them about what that looks like, how we can support their efforts. And if we can't get them in the fall, can we get them in at a later time in the spring or through some online program to bridge that gap? But it is certainly a moment when international students are asking how welcome they are. What I hear primarily from our class of students is they see Hawaii as a very welcoming place, and they're still very excited to come and benefit from the world-class research that we offer.
Do you find yourself having to communicate separately to these international students to ease some of their concerns? I don't necessarily think that it's marketing per se, but just overall communication in making sure that these concerns are being addressed and that are recognized by the university.
Yeah, it's critically important to us that everyone on campus feel welcomed and that we're excited about having them with us. And that has probably never been more of an issue than today with international students. So we stay in regular contact. Our offices are reaching out directly to them, not waiting for them to reach out to us, to make sure that we're answering questions and supporting them through what is definitely not normal times.
I want to circle back and talk a little bit about the overall financial plan and the budget as a whole, because another source of funding obviously comes from the state itself. And we are hearing from lawmakers that have appeared on this show about cuts that are going to have to make adjustments that may have to be made to the budget moving forward as they get more information that comes down from the federal level about how things will impact on the state level. Noting that and knowing that the state plays such a crucial role in funding many of the programs and things that you offer at the University of Hawaii, what are those conversations like with lawmakers? Because it always seems that UH is always going to ask for money. I mean, it's no doubt that the institution always will need money.
Mm-hmm.
But what are those conversations like about at a state level about how the state may be able to fill some of those gaps?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to thank the governor and the legislature and the higher education committees. We have one of the highest state-funded higher education enterprises in the country, and that makes a difference. And so I'm enormously grateful for that kind of public support for higher education. And we have been working together as a team and navigating through these changes. I think some of the concerns that we initially had as this was unraveling really rapidly was the degree of impact that we would be experiencing in the short term, such that we couldn't adjust or create bridge situations as funding streams dried up. Fortunately, it seems to be stabilizing to some extent. We're waiting to hear what the federal budget will be. That has not been decided. as of yet. Once we have that information, I think we'll have a much clearer picture. But certainly, we're here to be good partners with the state. A lot of folks are experiencing some challenges, nonprofits, different areas of state benefits, and we're here to do our part to cut costs and move our own agenda along as best we can in this environment.
When you're talking to lawmakers about these types of things and overall state budget and trying to craft out what that may look like, is there any area specifically that you think the university could use more support from the state at, whether it be in funding for programs, or if it's facilities or whatever it may be? What does that priority list look like when you're talking to lawmakers about things you want to see with the University of Hawaii?
Well, the key, I think, is to tie what we ask for to our strategic initiatives so that we're constantly moving the university not from a steady state to a better one as we go forward, particularly in a moment like this when so many different things are changing. Top of mind for me certainly is our capital improvements. We have a lot of facilities that need maintenance and repair, and we've had a number of years that we have not been fully funded in that regard. So I think being able to provide first-class facilities for our students, including in student housing, is really a priority for the system. But another area I'm eager to talk to the legislature about is funding for artificial intelligence, AI. We want to be the leaders in helping our workforce move through this time in terms of training and support and operations, and that takes some resources that are new in addition to what we have. So, but in terms of the specific asks, those are being developed as we speak.
You mentioned student housing, and I want to bring up something that your predecessor got somewhat criticized by the legislature about, was what was happening at UH Manoa and some of the conditions there, just the timing of it, how long it took. What can you tell us about what's happening specifically on the UH Manoa campus with regards to housing and how things are moving forward in that area?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that one of the first things I did was walk through all student housing at Manoa, and I've been in the housing at Hilo as well to get a first hand look and to speak with students in the housing of what they're experiencing, what it looks like, to really get a sense of what it is that we're talking about. And there's no doubt we have work to do. But I also have seen a great deal of progress from what I understand it was even 2 or 3 years ago. This fall, we're incredibly excited to open new student housing and faculty housing, Hale Haukani, that should come online here in just a few months. And we should, for the very first time, have the highest number of beds for students in our history. What's really important and where the challenge comes in is it's important not just to have new things that are shiny and lovely, but affordable housing that our students at any socioeconomic point can afford. And so that was a message I heard from a lot of students. Please make sure entry-level housing, your basic health and wellness, Spartan accommodations like many of us who are older remember in our cinder block dorm rooms, that those are available so that students can afford to come to campus.
And maybe just to provide context for those who are unfamiliar with that process, so there are different tiers of pricing then when it comes to student housing, and it's based upon maybe what you can afford, and so the newer things are probably a little bit more costly for students.
Sure, they have more amenities, and so as you would expect, you pay more for those. And many of those that we've been moving into public-private partnerships to really find ways that we can move the construction forward. The university is, as I understand it, the most successful, maybe the only in state government that has done successful private-public partnerships. And it's a way for us to continue to get things done in a timely way that meets the different demands that are in our student population. But having different options, I think, is the best way to offer there isn't a one-size-fits-all for our students, and we try and recognize that in the housing options we have.
Okay, so we're hearing that there are more beds available, but let's talk about students that are coming in. How does enrollment look overall as you head into this next calendar year? Have you seen any trends or anything, any campuses that are seeing any significant changes in enrollment?
Oh, it's still too early to say. A lot of it depends on when we have registration on each campus, so it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. But we are up at the moment, it looks like, overall in enrollment, and Manoa enrollment continues to be strong. And I'm very excited to see an increase in many of our campuses in first-time freshmen. So that message about the value of higher education and how it leads to workforce outcomes and careers that people are excited about is getting through. So I think that's really an important part of the enrollment story.
Yeah, let's have that conversation, because when you look at a national level and you're hearing about some of the trends that are happening, we are hearing from other universities that are seeing declines in enrollment. Maybe students choosing, coming out of high school, choosing not to seek higher education.
Right.
How are you folks addressing these trends nationally, whether it be communication to incoming or potential students? And do you see this as something that needs attention?
Well, it certainly needs attention in that no matter what we do, the demographics are changing. The number of 18-year-olds and high school graduates are going to continue to decline. And so asking how do we fulfill our mission in that environment is a big question for us. And part of it lies in the AI that I was talking about. This is a time when everyone will need to be reskilled and continue to upskill and have lifelong learning across the spectrum of careers. It's not going to be a one and done in the traditional model that we have now. So we are asking ourselves, how do we stay the most relevant, create the broadest level of access with online programs that aren't tied to a particular location, so that we can really serve the workforce needs of every island in Hawaii and every employer.
Well, this may seem like an elementary question, but because you bring up AI, I think to my time as a college student, and just thinking about the evolution and things that are happening with advancements in technology and AI. How does the institution really help regulate AI? Because we know that students are relying on AI in so many different ways to develop reports, to help write papers. I mean, how do you find that balance between expanding AI, but also knowing its limitations, that it has to exist in order to really continue to allow students to succeed?
It is not a simple thing, and this will be something as a society that we grapple with, and certainly higher education will grapple with. But the advent of generative AI is akin to the invention of electricity. It will touch everything. And telling people not to turn the lights on is not going to be an answer, right? They're going to continue to turn the lights on. They're going to use the internet. When the internet came along, that was the argument then. Don't use it. Keep doing it in the old way. Our job, I think, is to teach ethical, responsible use of these tools and make sure that our students know how to use them in the workplace, because their employers will expect that. And so, finding that divide and being thoughtful as a community of where that division is will probably be something that is literally an everyday kind of task that we set for ourselves. It's not going to be a one and done. It will continue to evolve, and we'll continue to evolve with it.
When taking over this job, obviously, when you hear just in the community, University of Hawaii, everyone just automatically assumes Manoa, and just the attention that it gets. But this is an entire system. You are president of multiple campuses spanning the entire state. How do you help to prioritize the needs of other campuses on the neighbor islands? You mentioned UH Hilo earlier, but in this role and capacity, having to learn all the different needs of each of the various communities and finding that balance.
To me, it's not that hard, because the role of the community colleges and our other 4 years is absolutely critical in serving the needs of the state. Manoa is the flagship. It's the R1. It has a specific, very specific mission and land grant to be, applied research at the highest levels. But that access mission of our community college in our 4 years is instrumental in the success of so many of the citizens of Hawaii. And so everything that I'm looking at now is, how do we integrate these pockets of excellence across the 10 campuses and the 5 education centers to really leverage it to a whole nother level of scale and excellence, to do things we couldn't as individual campuses, and that includes Manoa. So I think there are, in fact, I know there are tremendous opportunities for us to continue to move the system forward to better serve the needs of the state.
And how do you, just as a leader, manage this? I mean, how do you, whether it be through communication with all the various campuses, because it is, as you said, it may not seem like a lot, but I assume that every school and every college has their own needs. How do you find that balance in just trying to make sure that their voices are heard? And what was it like maybe also for you in the first few months visiting all of these different campuses?
Ryan, I would say it starts with listening, right? I mean, that's why I went to the campuses, and I didn't just go to speak to administrators. I spent an entire day on each of those campuses talking to students, faculty, and staff. What's important to you? What's special and unique about this place? What do you want to preserve as we may leverage some of the campuses together? And what are you looking for more support? So I think that piece of listening is just critical. And one of the first things that I've done is actually take the community college chancellors and give them a direct line of authority to me. They work through an intermediary in the community college system, which has been an important voice for them, but I think it's important I hear directly from those chancellors. So that kind of direct dialogue and communication, and I fully intend to continue visiting the campuses on a regular basis so that I am not on the Manoa campus, I am across the university system of Hawaii.
Let's talk also a little bit about just as you were navigating through and learning about these different campuses, but now being on the job for 7 months. Has there been anything that stood out to you that surprised you? That maybe when you took this job, you thought, this is something that I never thought I would experience or thought would come up. What have been some of the biggest surprises in this new role for you?
Certainly the level of interest in the university is frankly a wonderful surprise. It's also challenging in some respects, as everyone has an opinion about how we should be doing our work. But you know, it is a dream of any college president to have people care about the university. And the level of investment here across the board of just about everyone who has a connection in some way, either a child or themselves or they work with people who graduated from UH, means people are deeply, deeply invested not only in the success of the university, but in my success as success of the university. And that's been delightful. People have, the support that I've been shown has really been a wonderful thing for me.
You know, you again started this role earlier this year in January, so you haven't necessarily had that full year per se of a calendar year of the athletic school year. So this is kind of entering your first official full year in this role. Knowing that and knowing of some of the challenges that exist, as we talked about at the top of the show, but also just laying forth your plan, your strategic outlook of what you would like things to look like at the University of Hawaii system. What are some of the key initiatives that you think you're going to really try to focus on entering into this first full year in the helm?
Well, we've been messaging a pretty consistent story, which is we are going to move forward. No matter what the federal situation is, no matter what the financial situation is, we will move strategically forward. Certainly the AI I mentioned, that will be a system-wide initiative that goes beyond the university into our community. Another is really creating a baseline standard of care for every single student at the University of Hawaii. And that goes to your question about the system, right? It's not acceptable to me if there's a difference of resources that are available on different campuses. Every student is our student. And so thinking through what that means, we're acquiring technology, EAB, in student success that will flag for us the early warning signs when a student begins to go off the path of success. Things that like a failure to check into an online course in the last 24 hours, not showing up to the library, for an assignment, things of that nature that allow us to proactively go to the student and say, how's it going? Versus waiting for that student to come to us so that we can provide that support. So, ensuring that every student is supported at a high level is right there in the front of the priorities.
And as you mentioned online, I mean, how has that looked like for, just the overall academics of higher education? We obviously know what happened during the pandemic and the amount of people that transitioned into online learning, and students are obviously back on campuses now. But how do you find that balance between online education as well as trying to encourage people to go in class and learning in those types of in an institutional setting like that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important for anyone who hasn't been in a recent online class to know the pandemic was not online education. That was emergency education. What we're talking about when we talk about online is highly skilled, highly supported instructors in a very dynamic, interactive environment. And students vote with their feet. We have an increasing percentage of students who are in fully online programs. Even if they're not advertised that way, they're finding ways to piece together these programs, especially in our community colleges. But what we're seeing is there's gaps in the third and fourth year. There's nowhere for them to go if their only access is in an online format because they're on a different island or they have to work full time or they have children. So we're putting together a gap analysis that really shows us where are the opportunities we're missing to serve the needs of our students and to serve the needs of our state. Right now, Hawaii is a net exporter of online students. There is no reason why the University of Hawaii can't better serve students in our own state in an online format. So And you're right, it's not an either or, it's a both and, right? We have to have vibrant campus environments too. So trying to figure out where that line is really depends on where students are enrolling and how do we maintain a vibrant presence in both camps.
Well, one of the things that we're going to be talking about a little bit later is focusing in on athletics at the University of Hawaii in Manoa. You have obviously played a role in hiring this new athletics director. Your thoughts overall about where the athletic department is going, and just in the first few months about working closely with the new athletic director.
Yeah, I couldn't be more excited about the hire of Matt Elliott. I think he's exactly the right person at the right time. He has the experience, he has the integrity, and he has the strategy that we need to really weather a moment that's pretty complicated in collegiate athletics and frankly changing by the day in some cases. UH's team is Hawaii's team. And we want to represent the entire state as we make good decisions about being excellent and creating winning teams. And it's not an inexpensive proposition, and we have to think through how to do that effectively in this environment. But I'm enormously excited about the future of UH athletics.
And just maybe if you can speak to, because, as there was just a lot of uncertainty sometimes around the athletics department, there are people in the community who also say, we don't need this. It costs too much money. Your stance on the role athletics play in the community and maybe the need or the role that it should play within the institution itself.
Yeah, well, I'm a fan. I'll start with that. I visited all of the spring sports just about, was able to sit through all of them and was so impressed by our student athletes. It isn't just our revenue generating sports.
Yeah.
It's also those student athletes who day in and day out are doing their sport because they love it and they're going to school, and we're proud of that. And that actually turns into some of the highest retention rates that we have. So there's absolutely an academic function there. It also is our front door. It gets people excited about the university. It's fun. It helps tell the story of excellence that we have in a different way. And I think it's vital to the university, especially in a state where there are no professional sports. So I'm committed to finding a way forward that maintains it and continues to show the excellence that's expected in our community.
Well, we're going to be speaking with Matt Elliott in just a little bit on the other side of the break that we're going to take in just a few moments. But before we let you go, I do also want to just talk a little bit more about local enrollment and the importance of keeping students and encouraging them to attend the University of Hawaii. It has long been known as an affordable place for students to be able to, local students to be able to go and seek higher education. How do you continue to make that point to local students to choose the University of Hawaii system? And try to find ways to keep it affordable where local students can't afford to stay at home.
I think we need to tell better the story of excellence that is the University of Hawaii. It's not just an affordable option, it's the best option for most people in our state. We have programs that have world-class research. We have student support programs that can help you reach any goal that you want, from a workforce outcome or a certificate or a trade, all the way up to a PhD. And so my job, as I see it, is to tell that story of excellence to a community that sometimes doesn't value itself as highly as the external community values it. You asked me what was surprising to me. That's something that has surprised me. The university's reputation is actually higher externally than internally. So I see it as a challenge to retell that story about excellence without debt that cripples you for the rest of your working life. So pretty exciting story.
One of the things, of course, that is very specific to the University of Hawaii is obviously the Native Hawaiian community and the programs that are being offered there. When we talk about some of these cuts that we talked about at the top of the show about what's happening potentially with DEI and federal funding, when you talk about Native Hawaiians and the type of academic research and things that happen within specifically for Native Hawaiian education, are you at all concerned about that, about the state of funding for those types of programs specifically related to Native Hawaiians?
Well, I think we have to be concerned because it's critically important to who we are. Our strategic plan is about being a Native Hawaiian place of learning. I just came off a week-long intensive where I cleared my schedule to really dive into what that means and what that looks like for our university. But so far, the information that's coming in is relatively positive in this regard, and we are carefully monitoring it because we are committed to maintaining our focus and our identity as a culturally responsive university to our place.
Well, before we let you go, just any final message that you may have about what's happening at the University of Hawaii. I think oftentimes we see these headlines about things that are happening at the federal level, some of these numbers that are coming through in terms of the cuts that are happening. And it's cause for many to be concerned about what's happening throughout the University of Hawaii system. What is maybe the message that you have for those out there who are wondering, what the state of the University of Hawaii looks like?
The answer is we are paying attention to these things. They are important factors that are happening, and we all should be involved in that. But this university is moving forward in an exciting way that will take us to the next level. We will fulfill our mission, and we will continue to do it better every year than we've done it in the past. It's too important for us to fail.
Well, thank you, President Hensel, for taking time to join us. We have wanted you on the show for some time. I know scheduling is always sometimes difficult, so we really do appreciate you, though, taking time. And, of course, always welcome you back here to give us updates of what's happening throughout the University of Hawaii system. Thank you so much.
Mahalo. Thank you so much.
Coming up after this break, we're going to catch up with the new athletics director at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, Matt Elliott. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Spotlight Now here on Hawaii News Now. We're continuing on in our focus on the University of Hawaii. We talked to UH President Wendy Hensel, and now we're catching up with the new athletics director at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, Matt Elliott. Matt, thanks for taking time. We know that you are busy. You have been on the job just a few weeks, not even a month yet, but thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here.
Aloha, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
Let's talk about just your background and what attracted you to want this job, this position in athletics during a time when there is so much, as some describe, chaos happening on the national level. What attracted you to this job?
I think college athletics is a spectacular industry. To have student athletes who come together, perform at the highest level academically and athletically is really special. And this is my home. So to be able to do that here in Hawaii, to do it in a community that cares so much about their programs, yes, it is a wild time in college athletics and things are changing so much, but there's also amazing opportunity to be successful here in this place, and that was really inspiring to me.
What have these first 3 to 4 weeks been like? What have you specifically been doing on the job? Because, there's not a lot of time before kickoff and the first Wahine volleyball game get underway in about a month now. What has been occupying most of your time on the lower campus right now?
Yeah, really it starts with getting to know our people, getting to know our procedures and how we do things, getting to know our student athletes. So even though official practices are just getting started, we still have students out there training and practicing almost every day. So building those relationships has been really useful. But I've worked in college sports for a while now, and I understand kind of that big picture, how this industry goes. But it's unique and different in every place. So really investing in our people, really investing in the decisions we've made that have already created a legacy of really strong success, and saying, okay, as things are now evolving, what are we going to do to be able to continue to have that level of success and pursue even greater achievements?
When you're looking at sort of the plan for athletics in the next year or maybe beyond, what would you say are maybe your top 3 or top priorities as you enter into this new role? Things that you would like to see get done and things that you want to prioritize during your first year here?
We're going to prioritize the student athlete experience from the get-go. So that is, how are we supporting students so that they can succeed academically, right? We are an institution of higher education. University of Hawaii is an amazing, amazing world-class institution, and we want our students to pursue and just take advantage of every opportunity they have as students. Then they'll be able to take those degrees and do so much in this world. At the same time, we need to support them so they can be successful athletically, and there's a whole bunch of things that they need, right? They need support from coaching, they need nutrition, they need physical and mental health support, and on and on and on. So we got to create that experience. That's always going to be at our core. The other 2 big priorities are probably adjusting to this new revenue sharing model, which is evolved and changed and adjusted over the course of the last few years. And how we do that now in this new landscape is critical for our success. And then number 2, the majority of our teams are getting ready to transition to a new conference and go to the Mountain West. And that's a process that takes a lot of effort to get us ready for that and ensure that we are successful when we're in that conference.
Let's go back to one of those things that you talk about, the revenue sharing. If you can provide some context for those of our viewers out there who are unfamiliar on what that means in the collegiate landscape with the changes that have come down with the House settlement, what background can you provide to the average person out there who may have heard some rumblings about things that are happening on this level, but really don't have any real understanding of it? How would you describe, what's happening here?
Right. So the House settlement is the result of many years of litigation that was essentially looking at how is the college athletics financial model structured and how did it support the student athletes who participated in college sports. And what they've decided now, where we are at the end of this part of the process, is that it adjusted how we have a relationship as an institution with a student athlete. And the most fundamental change is for the history of college sports. It has been a purely amateur model where institutions could provide nothing more than the scholarship, cost of attendance, et cetera, to the student athletes. We can now provide direct compensation to them within this NCAA model. So that's the biggest, most fundamental change. There's if you will, a cap, an overall cap across all of sports. And for right now, for the schools that have opted in, that cap is $20.5 million. So every school has to work within that model to be able to figure out how much they can provide to their students. But in addition to that, it's also allowing us to look at the scholarship breakdown across teams. There used to be individual scholarship limits at every team. Those scholarship limits are not in place anymore. And then they've now imposed roster limits across every team, whereas those did not exist before as well in most sports. There were a couple that had them. So now what our job is in college athletics is to say, okay, the landscape has truly shifted. There's all these different pieces in terms of revenue share, scholarship usage, how you manage your roster, and put those together to make the most successful program overall.
How do you handle that from a financial standpoint with the athletics department already, having a difficult time making things, staying in the black or just getting to the black. And we know the challenges that the department has faced, but now having to find these financial obligations, if you will, to some of these athletes to pay out. How do you, as the athletic director, kind of lead that and look for various funding sources for that?
So it actually helps a lot because this is already happening, and it's been happening for many years. But even in the last 5 years, we've seen these entities called collectives come to the table, and collectives were essentially filling a void. There was money that was permissible to go to student athletes through sponsorship deals, et cetera, and collectives were doing that because institutions weren't able to. So our starting point is with great gratitude to express to these new organizations that are surrounding our program, we'd like to internalize this. We'd like to streamline the process and all the external fundraising that's already been happening. How do we bring that into the campus setting so that then we bring the control back to our coaches to be able to make decisions about how to best build their rosters? In addition to that, you're absolutely right. There is always going to be the challenge to increase revenue and bring that into our program. We have tremendous support from our university and from our legislature already, so we will seek to tell our story and how that can grow, but it also means going into the private sector, looking for donors and looking for corporate sponsors who believe in the future of this program and want to help us recruit and retain extraordinary student athletes.
And so it also sounds like there is going to be a lot more lean on the community as a whole with these corporate sponsorships that you speak of, because the athletic department already has a corporate sponsorship ask, right, where corporate sponsors support the department as a whole. Now we're also asking for them to also maybe potentially support these student athletes. How do you sell this program and this department to these corporate sponsors to ensure that they're getting, that they're making a quality investment in this program?
Yeah, well, they can still do traditional name, image, and likeness deals. So that's a situation where a corporate entity may say, yes, we believe this student athlete is a pillar of the community, and we would love to have them endorse our restaurant or our business or whatever the case may be, and they can have that relationship with the student. In terms of the direct sponsorship back to the athletics department, what our message is there's really a whole host of different ways to do that. You could support the operations of the program. We may have a partner who says, we are incredibly invested in the mental health of student athletes, and that's a program we want to support. And we want to grow the staff there so that we have additional resources for our student athletes. Or maybe we care so much about academic support, and we want to help fund the mentors and the tutors and that kind of programming. So I think there's so many different opportunities to help our program collectively really thrive. That's our message to our sponsors, is that we are now streamlining this. Everything can come back to the institution as opposed to having to look at these external groups. But in streamlining us, we're also giving you choices in the way that works best for you, is most suited to what you do as an entity.
You are coming from a background and an institution at UCLA, one of the schools that are now part of a power conference. And when you look at the landscape of where conference realignment has really shifted things, how do you ensure that the University of Hawaii stays relevant when there are other conferences and institutions that can offer a lot more money to student athletes, and it becomes this competition over what the compensation rate is, and how do you sell Hawaii and make Hawaii still a viable place where student athletes want to attend?
Yeah, I think it's completely fine that there are other schools who are at a different level. We don't all 350 plus Division I schools don't have to be the same when they look at their budgets, but we have to be really good in the space we are in. So the space we are in is in a Big West conference and a Mountain West conference, and in those spaces, I think we can be absolutely competitive. And my goal and our objective as an athletic department is to be the marquee program in those conferences. And I think we do that by creating our vision, telling our story, asking this entire community to be a part of it. And it doesn't just mean with money, right? There's so many ways to support our student athletes in ways that are not just contributions, but when you're there, when you're watching our games, when you're supporting them and showing them that hard work really matters, when they're out in the community, and even you see a student athlete walk by and you tell them how much it means to you that they are here and they are part of our Ohana, they're going to want to stay, and they're going to want to be here, contribute to our economy and our community after they graduate. So I think Hawaii is in a really specific and unique place that is different than almost anywhere else, where we really can say this entire state is behind this program. We have a campaign, we have a slogan now where this is our team, this is Hawaii's team. And that really resonates, I think, because that is our message of how special this is for everybody who's involved. And the reality is, I think we can be successful in the place we're in. I think we can be successful in the conference that we're in. And if we do that, then you have the opportunity and possibility to do really anything after that.
Let's talk a little bit about that conference and where things are heading with, the UH heading into a different conference. And as someone who has been a part of a change with a athletic institution moving conferences. What are some of the things that need to happen? Because I think as a fan, standpoint, they just see it as, oh, it's different teams that we get to play that are in a conference now. There's a lot more that happens between that. What are some of the things that have to happen during this transition into a new conference?
Like you said, it is a long-term process. So we're already meeting regularly with our Mountain West colleagues. We had an advantage, a little bit of a head start because our football program is already there. And as we move, the majority of the other programs, we are starting and we are already in conversations with them about, okay, what is the structure of this organization? How does UH fit into it? What role are we going to play both in an administrative leadership place, but also our coaches? So you're already trying to get our coaches involved in the leadership meetings that they have with their peers. Because the things that you have to start sorting out now are scheduling, travel. How are you going to do academic support on the road in different places? How long are our trips going to be? There are all these different pieces, but if you're not at the table, right, if decisions are being made for 2026 and beyond, and we're not in those conversations, then that really puts us at a disadvantage. So again, that advantage of us being there because of football is really helping, but now we are coming to the table in all these other conversations for the other sports as well, and that will set us up to be able to navigate these hurdles. But it is a comprehensive process, and that's why I listed it early on as really one of our main goals that we have to tackle over the course of this next year, because our goal is not to just get to the Mountain West. It's to get there and know we're ready to be successful.
Let's talk a little bit about football and the importance that it plays with kickoff happening, in just a few weeks now, as you count that down, and noting the challenges that exist right now, especially when it comes to facilities, playing on campuses, and that whole experience. Are there any changes, anything happening to the infrastructure, any things fans can expect heading into this season with football, and some of the things that you may be excited about this team and heading into this season?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's 25 days. I think I looked that up this morning. 25 days until our first game. We're playing Stanford, which is a marquee Power 4 opponent, really exciting competition. I'm really anticipating a great game, and I think we will be extraordinarily competitive. And to see our team that we've been watching train over the summer, we got some flashes of our new quarterback at the end of last season, the excitement about getting him out there, and just seeing that whole team come together with a really great defense, how they performed last year, just position by position. We've got a lot to be excited about. And then, yes, we're in a transition space in terms of where our facility is right now, but it also is a really cool, intimate experience, right? We get 15,000 fans into that stadium. We can be extremely loud, right? We can create a competitive advantage for our home team. We are talking actively. We met again about this yesterday. All the different things we want to do in terms of game day experience to address the things that people have continued to bring to our attention. And we're going to be rolling that out through our social media, through all of our different platforms of these are the benefits of being here. But the biggest benefit of all is being there as a community, experiencing it, what it's like to be there on a game day, celebrating the successes of our team. And for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, our fans, our families will look back and say, I was there that day when that happened. I got to see that throw, or I got to see that interception. And you can't replicate that unless, there's no other experience like being there live. So that's what we're trying to prepare for. And there's going to be some really cool enhancements that we'll be sharing very soon.
Well, we look forward to that announcement as well. But when you look at the large picture, obviously a big part of the football program's future and success will depend on what happens with Aloha Stadium. Now, there are some who in the past have said that there is no need for the stadium. We should just leave, the existing infrastructure the way that it is. Make this temporary stadium a permanent one. Your thoughts overall about, the importance of Aloha Stadium and getting that project done so that this team can play in that stadium?
Yeah, first to say, I think that our campus and everybody around it, the philanthropists who have leaned in to make this possible, to have our stadium on campus, have done an incredible job, and I'm so grateful for them because we have a place to play and we can be successful in that place. But I genuinely believe that a long-term solution, a permanent stadium, is necessary for a D1 athletics program with football to be successful. And it creates massive benefits for the football program, for the athletics program, but I also believe this is a community asset. I look at the plans, I look at the ideas that are around this, and it's not just simply let's build a football stadium. It's let's build a venue that creates all different types of entertainment opportunities. It can have concerts, it can have other sports, not just football, other high school level, et cetera. But you also surround that right? With all these other opportunities, whether it's commerce, whether it's business development, whether it's housing, you involve rail. And to me, then that is exciting because that is a statewide benefit. It can generate so many good things. And I genuinely believe as a community, we deserve to have places like that. And I know there's already been great investment and commitment from our state to pursue this plan. And I would love to see that continue to develop because I think it's great for the university, but I also think it's great for Hawaii overall.
And as one of the more frequent tenants of that stadium, how important do you think that UH has a role in discussing what the stadium looks like, some of the things that you would like to see out of this facility? Is that a conversation that you've had with lawmakers, with the governor, anything about what UH's role will be with the stadium and how you can help to, advance this project, move forward?
Yeah, so I'm going to get this wrong because I don't remember all the right terms, but I am in some way designated to be on the stadium authority, or at least be on in the meetings. And I'm not exactly sure how to define that, but the reality is I am at the table, and I'm doing that at the request of President Hensel and representing her and our university. So I get to be in the conversations, and selfishly, I'm very happy about that because I think in both personal experience, but the experience of our department, we can lean in and provide expertise along the lines of what makes a stadium successful for a program of our size. What is our conference looking for in terms of a destination? What are opposing teams looking for in terms of a destination? What does television look for because they want to be able to produce an excellent product? All of those things matter to the long-term health. We can schedule better opponents when we have a stadium like this. We can get in a better conference, like I'm not saying move to a better conference, but we can be in the best conference possible when we know that stadium is a part of it. So I think it does play this critical role, and we can help define how to do that in a good way.
Aside from what's happening with the stadium, are there any other things that you're advancing or trying to advocate for with changes on the lower campus when it comes to facilities and things that you would like to see done?
Yeah, so we are in that process right now of looking at our latest designation in terms of funding and saying, okay, how do we use those resources? Obviously, we've got to maintain the temporary stadium that's there, but you may know that the track and field setup and an arrangement with the soccer field in the center has been under construction for a bit now, and that is close to coming online. I was just looking at that a couple weeks ago in person, but then I saw a picture last night of the grass is looking really beautiful. So getting close to a point where our soccer team will be able to go out there, and then thinking about what are the other phases of projects like that, looking at the baseball stadium, what needs to be done there. And then there are just certain things that you have to maintain and upkeep, and we need our funding to be able to do that so that across the board, Stan Sheriff Center, everything is there at a level that our fans have a great experience.
There's no doubt that this department has gone through a lot within the last, few months and looking at the last year with all the changes that have happened, obviously with leadership and things. And there have been some, people who have been negative and very critical of the athletic department. As the leader now of this department, what is your message to the community about your role and the importance of, the athletics program at the University of Hawaii?
I think our story is extremely positive. Again, it starts with, why do you have college athletics? You have college athletics because you're creating this pathway for extraordinary human beings, which are our student athletes, to go out and change the world, to do what they do on campus, but then go off and have these incredible impacts on our community. Many of them will stay here. Many are from here. Many will stay here afterwards. So at its core, college sports is really a fundamental element of a university and can add so much value. It also brings a community together. It also creates these environments, whether it's a volleyball game, whether it's a football game, whether it's you're out watching, the women's water polo team as they're getting ready for, to compete for their national championship. In every sport, you're bringing together different elements of the community for such a positive experience. It's allowing people to say, it doesn't matter what else we're doing in our life right now. We're going to focus for the next couple hours on something that's just really fun. So I think college sports at the core, at its center, is just something that we can all be very supportive and positive about. And then when you go from there, you look at what is our opportunity, what is our potential. And I genuinely believe the way that the college sports landscape has lined itself up or opened itself up right now with revenue sharing, with realignment, we are in a place where we can be the marquee program in the conference that we're in. And if you're the marquee program in the conference you're in, then you have the potential to do really anything. So I understand that there are some disadvantages that people have tried to impose on us, I genuinely believe those are advantages, and our story is really only positive. And now it's our job to go out and do that and make sure we keep telling that story.
You know, I know, again, it's only been a few weeks, but has there been anything that surprised you the most about being in this role, and something that maybe you didn't think about when you initially got on board?
I don't know that I've been surprised. I've just been so incredibly gratified to meet people over and over again who are just telling me their stories, telling me about why college sports, why UH sports matters to them. And it's their experience they had as a child, or it's what they're doing now with their own children. And it just all kind of ties back to there's an immense amount of pride in our university. There's pride in our athletic department. There's stories about our history of incredible coaches and student athletes that people remember, and as I said earlier, will remember for decades. And now that I am a little more visible in my life and people are coming up to me and recognizing me, they're coming with that passion and with that positivity, and it's so much fun to have those conversations, and I just know they're going to keep happening.
Yeah, as someone who has been involved and aware of what happens with the athletic program, I can tell you people are going to come and share their opinions.
Yes,
the biggest place for me are the aunties at Longs that come up to me and share their opinions. You'll get a lot of people sharing their opinions about the athletics program. So, Matt Elliott, thank you so much for joining us and spending some time with us. And we look forward to catching up with you in the months and years to come. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We'll have more with Spotlight Now right after this.
From the moment you wake up.
Hawaii News Now brings you the stories that impact your day.
With more on the breaking news, we go live to Casey Lund.
Ready with the push alert? I'm going live. We have an update to the breaking news we brought you this morning on Sunrise.
Okay, guys, as soon as this wraps, toss to Mahia.
And we've been covering this story all day.
Now we go live to Mahia for a new development.
Stand by for breaking news. They just captured the suspect.
That's confirmed?
Yes, sources just confirmed it.
The news you need the moment it breaks.
Here on Hawaii News Now.
First alert traffic is like always having a helpful passenger right next to you.
There's a crash up ahead in the left lane.
When we see a backup, we'll tell you live on TV.
That doesn't look too good.
And send an alert to your phone.
I'll type, you drive.
First alert traffic on TV, streaming, and on the Hawaii News Now app.
Keeping you and your ohana safe.
Well, welcome back to Spotlight Now, and we continued on in our conversation about the University of Hawaii. We caught up with Wendy Hensel, the president at UH, to talk a little bit about some of the changes that are happening there since she has taken over now officially in the role of president for the last 7 months. She spoke about some of the impact that the University of Hawaii system is facing because of the cuts that are happening at the federal level that are coming down, that are impacting specifically research programs and grants that rely on federal dollars to be able to continue that moving forward. And so the president showing concern about some of those things that are happening, but saying that they remain committed to moving forward. She talked about some of the things and advancements that she would like to be seen implemented, including changes to AI in the future, and saying that the University of Hawaii can be a leader at that. We also spoke to Matt Elliott, as you heard there, about his new role, only a few weeks at the job at the athletic director's position, but seemingly very optimistic about what lies ahead. And so looking forward to the start of a UH football season that, as he said, is 25 days away. We know that there is currently information out there about a tsunami watch. We will continue to keep things, tracking things here at Hawaii News Now. I encourage all of you to stay connected through the digital platforms of Hawaii News Now as we receive updates about what is happening with this tsunami watch. You can also download our app for continuing updates on coverage as we continue to track this throughout the rest of the day. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be right back here next week, Tuesday, for another episode of Spotlight Now.